Just confirm that we're live on your end, if you would, please.
There we are.
Perfect.
Live and nationwide.
Happy Friday. How are you, my friend?
Good. Excited. Good. A lot of irons in the fire.
How does the first week? So, a lot of people, I've been reading quite a bit. I've been consuming a lot recently. I binge watched my first show over the holidays. I watched The Mandalorian, which was nothing short of incredible, and I know why people freak out about it. But actually, I read a lot. I read about a lot of articles. I didn't produce a lot of content because I was just lazy, and I sat around. And one of the things I was reading was a lot of people find the day, like the Monday after New Year's, as potentially the highest stress day of going back to work after a long vacation or like Memorial Day, like or excuse me, Labor Day. So people find like that Monday after Labor Day as just being like one of the highest stressed times ever. Did you find that with yourself, or did you not because you kind of had a plan in place, or where's your head at with all this?
Um, I'm weird. So take this with like 7 grains of salt. I fully understand this is the exception, not the rule. I couldn't wait to get back. I was just so ready and so hyped, and we had so many things that weren't at the finish line but getting close.
Mhm.
And I knew that let's wait and talk about it after the holidays was the last hurdle.
Yeah.
So, I had very different things waiting for me on the other side of that break than I think most people do. So I was just ready, man. And it was weird. I was talking, we had a client meeting, I think it was Tuesday, and it didn't feel like there was any ramp up period this week from Monday straight through now. Just went from 0 to 60. Normally there's like 2 or 3 days of people getting kind of back acclimated and get their feet under them and kind of shake off the holidays. But at least in this building, we were, pretty much hit the ground running right away, so it's weird.
Yeah, same here. This is the first energy, like, me, I'm a big energy guy. Like I love going from one project to a next or intertwining a bunch of projects together. Like this was the first week for me that I felt that I call it the flow. Like this is the first week I had that flow back until about that first full week before Thanksgiving. Because people just go into a weird, and I get it. Trust me, I get a lot of people like to check out for weeks and weeks at a time. It's easy. It's easy to make that excuse to kind of check out between. I mean, call a spade a spade. I mean, Thanksgiving's almost become a full week event. It's just like that Monday you start getting those out of inbox notices, and it's like, all right, I get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you do you. But for me, this is the first week I kind of gotten back into that flow for, just that action. I'm one of those big like action guys. I love to have, you hear me say it all the time. I only get nervous when the phone stops ringing or making those noises. Like when my phone's going, and it's just message after message after message. It's like things are happening, So I'm in the same boat with you. I loved the unplug. I think I finally did it right by binge watching something. I turned to Siobhan and I go, is this what people do? Like we're watching like 5 Mandalorians in a row. And I go, is this what people do? And she goes, yeah, I think so, because she just got done with school and everything. But, I think it was healthy. I feel great coming back from that. So I think that the unplug was needed, but the flow's been good this week.
Yeah, I've just been I just feel like there's nothing left in our way, because it's really how I felt last January, to be honest with you, when we kind of had our new systems put down on paper, and I felt it was tight enough to start putting in front of people, and then we got serious with that like end of February, and then pandemic happens.
Yeah.
We're not out of the woods by any means, but it feels like that roadblock of, hey, that all sounds great, but like we can't really plan for 6 months from now. That no longer exists.
Yeah.
And just for us and what we do and where we're at, that's just a very exciting time. And then we also have a lot of things that have been in the early kind of conceptual strategy phases that are now moving into real life, doing what we do best, getting it out there and seeing results from it, and really getting into the fun stuff of what we do. So it's just, I don't know. I'm super hyped and just so excited to get all of that going and out there. I had a little bit of a holy shit, this is overwhelming moment last night, but I just put in like one of those good, just however many hour days. I think it was like 10:30 when I left. It was funny, like Lauren FaceTimed me when she was going home, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be late. She's like, I know, I can tell. And I'm like, okay. But it was like excited late night. I was super motivated. I was super in the zone. It was not like I'm staying here like, fuck, I gotta figure all this stuff out. What am I gonna do? Mm-hmm. So I feel so much more centered and focused and just ready after that. So just game on, you know?
I had that. I felt guilty when I was sitting down watching TV and things, and I did have that little ping. You get that little ping right here, and I felt that a little bit kind of in that week in between Christmas and New Year's. And Siobhan, apparently the look on my face kind of told the story. She goes, "What's the matter?" And I said, I don't know what's going to happen in January. Like, I feel good about the work that's been done over the last 12 months to kind of lay the groundwork to make sure that things are still growing. But you never know. I told her, leading up to January and February, not only is it a dark time in Central New York, but it literally is like the dark time in Central New York. Like January and February, just by nature, is a really tough time to kind of be up in spirits and be up in business and be up in everything that you want to accomplish. So I just kind of let her know, I'm like, listen, we might see a little dip here. I don't think it's going to happen, but you just be prepared for it, of having that conversation. And I opened up my inbox on Monday and I started having conversations with people. And this leads me into my main question for this show is, are you finding, this is a big question, we're 10 months into this pandemic. People have already drawn their lines. They either, and we don't do politics on this show, but they either believe in it and they don't, or they don't. There's just no convincing anybody of anything about this pandemic. So my question is, do you find that people in your own life, and I'm not just talking about, Dave and your dad and people that you talk to every day. I'm just talking about everybody that you come in contact with. I don't care if you're at picking up dinner at the restaurant. I don't care if you're at the grocery store. I don't care if you're at the drugstore. I don't go anywhere else besides that. Do you find your daily interactions with everybody that you come in contact with have gotten better? Are people more empathetic? Do you think people are nicer to people, or do you think it's going completely in the opposite direction, just with your personal experience?
I think for me, that's a little bit of a tough one for me to answer, just because I literally only go to like 5 places. Mm-hmm. So I see the same people over and over again. But, I think for the most part, it's just amplified personality traits that already existed. Like the people that you see, being just incredibly empathetic or going out of their way to be kind or do things for other people, like they were doing that before. And the people that are negative, pessimistic, the world is ending, fuck the government, screw these people, they're doing that anyway. So I think you pay attention to it more. And I think it impacts you in a more heavy way in both directions, because before, if somebody was being overly nice or overly generous, that's just how they are. And there wasn't anything kind of heavy at stake. Right. Or if somebody was being, just very apathetic or negative or pessimistic, it'd be about, small things. So you wouldn't really put a lot of credence to it. But now that we have such pressing social, economic, health issues, you name it, I think it sticks out a lot more. Mm-hmm. So I haven't really noticed a difference, I wouldn't say, but it's definitely been just a more intense extreme one way or the other.
Yep. Do you think people that were empathetic before and more generous before and more, you know me, you know my thesis. I call it taking care of my 3-foot circle. You know, this is something I learned from my grandmother, that if more people took care of their 3-foot circle and didn't have to project their thoughts or feelings or try to convince other people, like just us as in general as a society, I think we'd be all in a better place. So for me, that's always been one of my pillar, you know, kind of core beliefs is, you know, just take care of, you know, the width of my desk right here. Just take care of this space. And as long as you're doing the things that you think are right and putting out into the world, I think we're all going to be, you know, I think we're all going to be better. I think for me, I feel as though the people that I come in contact with, and I'm like you, I go to the same 5 places. You know, I go to one family's house. I get my groceries delivered. Like this time of year, I go to Toggenburg. I don't even go to the grocery store. I feel as though the people that were more empathetic before and wanted to put good out into the world, I think they're doing more to try to overcompensate for the other side of it. I truly am starting to see that. And that started over it started over the holidays for me, where, you know, we donated to a local organization that helps out, you know, families in need. And I talked to one of the organizers and I said, you know, how are things looking? I know people are hurting this time of year, especially this year. I said, how are things looking? She said, we've never had more of an outpouring support than we did this year. We had to turn toys away from the toy drive just because people were just so giving. So I think in my just core circle, I feel as though people that are more willing to do it are going that extra mile to make sure that they're kind of overcompensating. I really do believe that. That's what I'm seeing.
Well, yeah, I think that's, I think those are like very similar circumstances. Like 100% you see that, you know, but I think that's people, you know, the people that are going above and beyond for things like that, like a toy drive, you know, those are just outstanding people. And, you know, hopefully and fortunately, you know, they're in situations where, you know, financially and economically they're in a good spot right now. Because I mean, every industry has been affected in, you know, to different capacities, but yeah, 100%. I mean, I think you saw it at the very beginning of all this when, you know, restaurants who were and still are impacted way worse than anybody else, all of them in Binghamton went out of their way to do free lunches for kids when schools were first closed because they didn't know what the answer is. Like, they couldn't afford to do that. You know what I mean? They had a mountain of shit they had to figure out, but that took precedence because that's just the kind of people they are. So, you know, I think it's one of those things, and I was just talking about it earlier this week. It's easy, especially this week of all weeks, and, you know, not to make light of anything, but it's easy to get sucked into the doom and gloom. Everything's awful. Everybody sucks. Everybody's terrible. Nobody takes care of each other. Like, that's an easy narrative to get trapped into. But if you just kind of open your eyes and look around, like, there's always, like, the vast majority of people are just amazing. Mm-hmm. But that isn't good stories or clickbait.
That's right.
You know?
Yep.
So I think that's one of those things, 100%. You know, it's there's for every one person that's just a complete idiot, there's 99 that would do something for a stranger tomorrow.
It's funny. Josh, my buddy from high school, says, you know, it's an interesting question. That's why I asked it. I'm glad you chimed in. He said, many seem to have become uncomfortably numb. You know, it's a great way to put it. Yet he's seen so many utilize this time to really reflect and reach out more. And I think, you know, I think your point is well taken. And this is what Adam always says anyway. It's like, you know what? It's the only reason we do this show is to get one person that has an interest in doing something to better their lives to take the time rather than doom scrolling, is to contribute to the platform or figure out, you know, what that side hustle was. I just Googled right before we got on the air. I just Googled, you know, the top 18 side hustles for 2021, you know, and it's a lot of the same stuff that it was in 2017. Like, there really was no, it's like, you know, become an Uber driver, or do, you know, shop for Instacart, or flip stuff on eBay, or, you know, it was all the same stuff then before the pandemic. I think you just need to, you either have the engine to try to better yourself or you don't. I mean, that's really what this comes down to. And I'm not being critical at all. I mean, the fact that people watch this show and comment on it, you're taking the time to watch two guys talk about are people being more empathetic during 10 months of a pandemic, you know? And that wasn't clickbait for any stretch of the imagination. I just simply want to know, what are people's experiences kind of as we go through this, and are they evolving? For me, I know I tend to be too rosy on things, but, and maybe this is your vibe attracts your tribe comment, you know, but I just feel as though things are getting better. I feel as though people are, I know it's the vaccines are going into arms now, which is helping things. We're slowly get pulled out of this thing. I know people want to talk about Cuomo and the government, and I get all that, but I truly think that things overall, all of the valleys and all of the peaks, I just feel as though they're getting better.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, you've put yourself in a situation and you've surrounded yourself with people who just live that way. Mm-hmm. And I want to be careful in how we word it, because there are a lot of things that are outside of people's control. And I'm not saying that, everyone can just go fix their own shit, stop complaining. Like, I'm not saying that at all. Yeah. But, like we talk about, life is just 90% how you react to stuff. And, it's one of those things, like, it's going to get better if you make it better. Mm-hmm. And I think just knowing you and knowing who you run with, that's very much the life philosophy there. Mm-hmm. Where it takes far less effort to tweet about the governor fucking your shit up than it does to proactively try new things. Yep. And, of course, on one hand, like we've always talked about, it's hard to really have the perspective to speak intelligently if things are getting better or not. Like, based on what? Based on numbers, based on people's attitude, based on places opening. Like, it's felt like that's been this moving target for the better part of the last year. And it's hard because based on whatever conversation you're having on whatever day, that could change. Especially for you and your family has far more insight as to what that life is actually like than 99% of people. That's why whenever I get confused, I just text you and I'm like, hey, what does Siobhan say? and then I have, like, we joke about it, but then that is worth more to me context wise than anything I'm going to read anywhere.
Yeah.
Because A, I know and trust Siobhan. B, she's fucking living it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's like one thing, like we talk about, the world would be a better place if you took care of your 3-foot circle. I think the world would be a better place if people got real life information on stuff before they formulated and posted opinions. Mm-hmm. On every level, on pandemic level, on politics level, on, superstar shortstops going to your favorite baseball team, for like actually form your own opinion in your own context. Life just gets a lot easier because I'm not stressing about what I wrote. Is that a reliable source? Is that from this year? By the way, guys, check the dates on the articles you're sharing. Like, if it's from 2007, like, can we just, if nothing else, like, just check the date. If it's from 3 years ago, just don't hit share. But I digress.
It's, you're right. It's almost like you want Facebook and Instagram and Twitter to almost have a listen button before you hit post. Uh-huh. Like if wouldn't that be a fun platform to literally sign up and say, this is a platform for civil discourse, but civil discussion. Like, wouldn't that be fun? Where it's like, all right, here's everything on this side. Here's everything on this side. And you need to listen to 3 articles on both sides before you post. Like, wouldn't that be? I mean, that'd be kind of fun. It would almost be like an adult, what do they call it in high school? Like debate class.
Yeah.
Like that kind of be fun. But I agree with you. It's no matter what you Google, you're going to find what you want to find. Yep. You're going to find your opinion no matter what it is. Josh, thanks for checking us out, man. He's headed off to work. He's going to go sharpen his bartending skills. Attaboy. Josh is out in Vegas slinging booze, man. Good for you.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for checking out the show, brother. But you're always going to find something that you want to go find. That's always been the way. But it's going to be the people that can listen to the other side, the other side of whatever you are, or better yet, Go into something undecided. Go into something just not having an opinion. Walking into the room, busting into the doors and saying, I declare that this is the right way to do it. It's like, no, wait until you see both sides and make an informed opinion. I'll give you an example. I was texting with my son this morning, and he was in study hall, first period. And he was texting me about a certain politician, and I'm not going to go which one. He was texting me about a certain politician. And he took a screenshot of something on Twitter, and he goes, Dad, this makes a lot of sense. I said, yeah, it does. I said, but how does it fold into the rest of what he thinks in his platforms? He goes, well, I don't know, but this one point makes sense. I said, good. That's a great way to start following and getting yourself informed. I said, but you take one point, then you have to figure out what the rest of his or her platform are, then go to the other candidates, find out what all of their platforms are. And this is not just for politics, this is for anything. And get yourself informed before you go out into the world and spew your opinion. So it was for him, it was like, well, he made this one point, so he must be right on everything else. I said, not necessarily. I said, so at 14 years old, he was sitting there in study hall thinking about, oh, wait a minute, I was going to go follow this politician and believe in what he was saying off of one tweet. And it's like, you can't do that. So it was just a really interesting conversation. I'm glad we're having that level of conversation right now. I really am.
It's alarming that Taven's more prepared to digest information than most adults. But no, I think that's a great example. And like, I just think that so it's hard for me to be unbiased on this just because I'm so deep into social platforms all day, every day. Mm-hmm. So I'm constantly, like, it's our job to look at how people behave and interact on those platforms. So I have a, not normal perspective on that. But I think one thing that I think will be super interesting is to see how these platforms continue to evolve on intense topics like this. I think you saw it this year, the fact that Twitter added real-time fact-checking alerts to every tweet that certain people put out, it dramatically changed how that content was perceived and digested from my experience, and it makes you wonder. We fall into the trap of thinking that this shit's been around forever because it's been such a big part of our life for the last decade. It hasn't. It's a infant in the world of media and content consumption. So that's kind of stuff that I look at. You think about Taven's generation. You know what I mean? By the time him and Paige are voting, who knows what these platforms are going to look like? You know what I mean? The guy that's the president right now, a lot of people will tell you, essentially got elected based on just saying shit on Twitter. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether it's in the middle, whether you believe it, whether you don't. The fact that that was just this unchecked, essentially Wild West platform is something that we'd never seen before. And in one presidential cycle, that changed. So you fast forward, 10, 20, 30 years from now, what's it going to look like for them? What are my kids going to see when they go there? And, you hope that everybody's acting, ethically and responsibly, but I think it could be a massive asset to getting good, qualified leaders in positions where we need them. You know what I mean? Like, the thought that we could have alerts go up anytime anybody on any side of the aisle says something that's like just a flat out lie or bullshit or disputed, that changes the whole conversation. So just thinking about that and looking ahead, like, I understand things are very divided and very tense and very rough right now, but a lot of times you need a pendulum to swing that far in one direction to kind of see if we can kind of come back. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great example. And I think about that a lot because my generation is very unique, right? We're kind of the last generation that'll know both sides of this. We talk about it all the time. I'm probably the last generation that had to watch TV commercials. Yep. You know, I remember when fucking TiVo was a thing where you had to record it and then watch it back just so you could fast forward through the commercials, let alone binge watch 5 episodes at one time. These kids aren't going to know that. You know what I mean? So you can't just run $40 million worth of political TV ads and know that people are going to see it and say whatever the fuck you want. Stuff's changing. So while it's very tense and it's very rough right now, I'm very excited and very optimistic to see what that ends up looking like.
Yep. I agree with you 100%. I think with every, and I know we pick on politics and that, but it's just where a lot of the eyeballs are, and that's all that matters. You and I talk about this all the time. If people didn't care about politics and they didn't care about the presidential election and they didn't care about these things, and they're talking about if they had the same kind of attention on the MLS, let's say Major League Soccer, if that was the hot topic right now, and one of the top guys or women on Major League Soccer was just spewing these truths and middle, I like the way you put that, the stuff in the truth, the stuff that's kind of gray in the middle, and the stuff that's just a blatant outright lie. Like, it would have been that person's Twitter account that would have been flagged, not the current occupant of the White House. So it all has to do with where the eyeballs are. And you're right. You are correct. And we should probably spend more time on that on another show. It's amazing to me that they can real-time fact check and what that looks like during the next presidential election. In 2024, from the moment from now until, whatever that is, November 3rd, 2024, when we go and pick our next president, every single tweet from every single candidate it will either get flagged or not based on it being true. I mean, how many people is that going to sway? Think about that for a minute. Like, if you see something that's flagged and says, this may not be truthful, here are a few sources for you to read. Like, wow, what a powerful tool. And we got to get into deregulation potentially, or regulation of big tech. And that's a completely different show. But just that thing alone is enormous.
Well, and I think like the big thing with that too is that it's right there. We have been, and will probably continue to be a nation of headline readers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like, you're not asking them to go read these 10-page articles and then decide. Literally scrolling through someone's feed and you see 4 out of every 6 tweets. This has been disputed. This might not be true. This is your impression is this person's full of shit. Right, wrong, or indifferent. So that's a very good point, where even it doesn't even require you to necessarily go read those sources. The mere fact that scrolling through somebody's timeline and there's literally an alert 2 out of every 3 posts that you see.
Yep.
Anybody that is in the middle or is unsure, because like, forget your people here and your people here. They're not moving for anything. We've quite literally seen that, right? But that 90% in the middle, how many are going to be swayed? You're like, wow, what the fuck is this person talking about?
I mean, won't it be interesting? This is a rhetorical question, but won't it be interesting if the same parameters are applied to personal accounts at some point? Won't it be amazing that when you're on Facebook and your crazy aunt that you've blocked on Facebook for the last year and a half, and we're all smirking because we all have that person in our life, that repost something about whatever kind of extreme group on the left, whatever kind of extreme group on the right, and say, see, I told you. And if there's a little bar that says, this may be disputed, here's a few articles for you to read. Like, trust me, I know we're talking about civil liberties, and I know we're talking about all this. This is a much, much bigger subject, but it's like, won't that be interesting if, it's like that person gets flagged, or your crazy brother, your crazy brother-in-law, or whoever, I don't care who it is in your life. Like, that person continually gets flagged, and eventually if they violate the new terms of engagement of you having the privilege of posting on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, gets taken down, or you get suspended, like, man, it could have huge ramifications.
It's already starting, and it's weird. It's easy for people that are, new or unfamiliar with the platform to see it as this big conspiracy just to silence people. But like, listen, I've had my fair share of frustrations with with platforms and things like that. But I don't know if they can figure it out and they can figure out a way to do it, you know, where it actually, I just think that it's just going to elevate the voices of the people that are just actually honestly trying to do stuff,
Mhm.
you know? So you know, it's like anything, it's going to be, you know, there'll be backlash, there'll be anything, but you know, we've literally never had anything like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You know, it's like they teach you in 10th grade social studies class just what the limits of free speech are. Like if you can go out and say whatever you want, fine. But if you run into a movie theater and yell fire and people rush out and get hurt, you're no longer, that's not free speech. Now you're causing harm. And I think that there's elements to these platforms where, you know, maybe not to that extent, but that type of dynamic exists. And we've never had to digest or understand that everything runs through here. And now that we've seen good and bad, what that can lead to, it's going to hopefully lead leaders to make proper, educated, thoughtful decisions on what you can and can't do on those platforms.
I think you're right. And to bring it full circle, for me, my final point is that's all social media did is it didn't change anybody. It didn't change anybody's views. It simply just put a magnifying glass on what you're already doing and what you were already saying inside your 3-foot wall, you know, your 3-foot circle. I think for me, I agree. You know, bringing it back to the original point was I do think people are not going to the extremes, but going to the, not politically, but going to the extremes of what they already were. You know, it's another magnifying glass on what people already were. If people were empathetic at the beginning of this, they're more empathetic. If people are less empathetic at the beginning of this, they're sitting there tweeting, they're live tweeting about Trump and Cuomo and everybody in between. You know, I just think it's more of the same. I really do. And I think for me, I know you and I are wired differently, so we always kind of see the bright thing. And even if business is down for you and I, like the first thing you and I would text each other would be like, go find more opportunities, go text more people, go DM more people, go find more opportunities. Like just go do that. So I think for me, that's the bottom line. And you're right. It's just, it's exacerbating what was already there, you know? And if you want to change, that's a whole different conversation. To be quite frank, I don't even know how to do that because I don't know how to rewire myself. But if you do need to, you know, that's fine. You can go find a way to go do that. But your point is well taken. It's a bigger magnifying glass than we even thought a year ago, which is crazy.
Yep. And I think it's a good thing to end on for the show. I know you got to go, but it's just, you know, social, you're right. It hasn't changed anything. It's just, we've never had an entire news crew and news channel in our hands before. There's all the stuff that you see on social media, like good and bad, has been happening forever. Now, just every person in the world has the ability to immediately document it. And I think people are learning, you know, there's shit you could say and do and get away with 20 years ago that you can't anymore. You know, and, you know, frankly, I don't know that that's a bad thing. You know, there's certain things that do need to be, you know, called out or celebrated. You know, if it's really great things that are happening that maybe just flew under the radar, nobody knew, now they are. So it's just, like we always talk about, the world's changing whether you like it or agree with it or not. So you can adapt to it and you can change and you can respond, or you can sit there and tweet your displeasure about it.
And now your whole life is being recorded. Now every opinion that you gave at the coffee shop 30 years ago is now being recorded. So everybody is now on record, and people are going to now pick and choose continually who they want to surround themselves with. But now they're learning faster. If you know somebody's opinion, you can go down their entire wall and figure out who that person is. And real quick, go to somebody's Instagram account, spend 90 seconds on somebody's Instagram account, and I will ask you, what is that person all about? You're going to know immediately. Whereas before it might have taken 5, 6, 7 years because you weren't privy of every conversation that person had at the coffee shop before. Everything's gotten condensed in life. And you know, the people that are going to be good about it are going to continue to be good about it. People are going to be well, not so good about it is the way I would put that. You're going to continue to find those people too, but you're going to find it faster. So
1,000%.
times we live in, my friend. All right. I need to run to a 1 o'clock appointment because I am very fortunate to have my phone that keeps ringing off the hook. So
Attaboy.
thank you for spending your time. As always, Facebook Live, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you're consuming our content. We understand that your most valuable asset is your time. So thank you very much for joining us and have a great weekend, everybody.
See you.